I think for most of us, talking about finances already makes us a little bit uncomfortable, right? Thinking about retirement can be downright terrifying. And I think part of the problem with that is that a lot of the information that's out there makes us believe that we must have this big pot of money in order to be able to retire. And if you don't have that, if by the time you're 30 you haven't made $14 bazillion, you're going to be destitute, living in a cardboard box, eating cat food, right? I've thought that. I know some of you have too, right? So the reality of the situation, though, especially for people like us in the arts and other freelance artists and workers, is that the retirement funds that we have are actually going to be comprised of individual components, which when you look at them on their own may not seem that substantial, but when you start piecing them together, they're going to make a much bigger picture that's going to be a little bit more comforting. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to explore some of those individual components, and we have some really great people here to talk about some of them. We're going to, each of them is going to be doing about 15 to 20 minutes on their particular component. I would ask you, we're going to have a Q&A at the end, so try to write down your questions and save them for the end, and then we'll all come up here and answer them for you. The other thing to think about when you're listening to them is that these assets and benefits they're going to be talking about are things that you're going to be nurturing and growing probably throughout most of your work life. So kind of keep in mind when you're listening to them the things that you can do throughout the different periods of your work life to allow you to take the greatest advantage of them when you come to the point where you decide not to work anymore and want to be truly retired. All right? Bailey's the founder and financial consultant of Entertaining Finance. Bailey's going to be talking about individual retirement accounts, which are more commonly known as IRAs, which are a great way for people like us who are freelancers to save for our retirement. So please welcome Bailey.
IRAs, some people call them IRAs. I actually have a client who refers to her IRA as IRA and her regular investment account as Lucille. We just like it. So it stands for individual retirement account. We also sometimes call them tax qualified accounts because people in finance like fancy language that no one else can understand. I'm gonna need to look at this. And they have special tax treatments. So there are a number of different kinds of IRAs, and you'll see them listed a number of ways if you ever look at your account statement. So simple IRA, rollover, traditional, SEP. Let's talk about what they actually mean. So a simple IRA and a traditional IRA are essentially the same thing. It's just a basic retirement account that you put money into as an individual. It sits there, and then at retirement, you take that money out. Now, for the sake of our conversation, retirement is gonna equal 59 and a half when you turn that magical age, because that's when we retire, right? For me, when I'm talking about it more generally, I think of retirement as the time in life where you get to work simply because you love it and not because it needs to generate an income. So I consider Matthew McConaughey retired. He did all of those rom-coms, he worked his little tush off, and now he gets to do weird artsy films. That's retirement, right? All right, so traditional IRA, SEP is the simplified employee pension. All that means is if you are incorporated, you get to have a bigger retirement account that you fund with more money. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second. You all, I'm sure, have heard of the Roth IRA also. We're gonna cover that. It works differently than a regular IRA. And I initially thought that Roth stood for something when I got into the business, but actually, Senator William Roth from Delaware created the legislation. So whenever you have tax-free growth and withdrawals from your retirement accounts, give a little thanks. The last thing, and you're hearing about all different kinds of retirement accounts. These work similarly to 401ks or 403bs, and the income in terms of taxes actually works almost in the exact same way as pension distributions. So it's a lot of information, and I'll try to make it vaguely entertaining. Entertaining finance? Yeah. All right. That's my curtains. I don't know if you knew that those were on there, in case you have to make a PowerPoint. Okay, I'm gonna stand out of the way because this really says everything. How does it work? There's no tax paid on the money that you put into an IRA when you put it in. So what that means is either it's taken out of your paycheck pre-tax if you get a W-2 for something, or at the end of the year, your accountant's going to say, hey, put some money into an IRA, and you're not gonna get taxed on that as income in the year you put it in. This can be awesome, or this could be terrible, as with most financial products. There are limited contributions for all the different kinds, and that's why we want to separate it out. For regular IRAs, you can put in $5,500 a year. If you're over 50, I believe, you can make catch-up contributions, which means you can put more because you feel like you're behind on saving for retirement. Tasty little treat, retirement accounts aren't the only money that you have in retirement. When you get to retirement, all of your money is retirement money. So you don't need to worry about it if at some point in life you go, oh my God, I don't have an IRA. It's totally fine, don't worry. So 401ks, max you can put in is $17,500, and SEP IRAs, the max you can put in is $54,000 or 25% of your income, whichever one is lower. It's all tricky like this because IRAs are the baby of the IRS and mutual fund companies. These are a marketing ploy to get you to save for retirement. Double-edged sword, great, but there are some drawbacks. Here they are. So the first one's clearly not a drawback. You don't have to pay any taxes while the money is in the account. You can also take special one-time distributions. Fancy things happen in life. You buy a first house, you have a baby. Awful things happen in life. You have a disability, a sickness, illness, you can't work. You can take up to $10,000 without paying a penalty. Note that whenever you take money out of an IRA, you have to pay taxes in the tax bracket you're in the year you take the money out of the account. So when you put money in, we call it tax deferred. I call it tax procrastinated, because essentially you're saying, I don't want to pay the taxes now, I'm going to pay them later. They might be higher, they might be lower. So there is an inherent risk in there, and it's something to really take note of as you're putting together a retirement strategy. 10% penalty if you try to use this money and take it out before you turn 59 and a half. So that's 10% plus the tax due. So that could mean that 55% of the money that you're taking out goes to the government and not to you, which sucks. This one sucks more though. After age 70 and a half, you have to start taking money out. It's called required minimum distributions, RMDs in the biz. If you don't take those out, if you don't take those withdrawals, you are charged a 50% penalty on what you should have taken out. This is one of the places that I feel a financial advisor comes in handy, because October comes in my practice, and you better believe everyone who hits 70, I am up their butts till the end of the year. Take your money, please, take your money. Between 59 and a half and 70 and a half, you are free to do whatever you like. Just remember that you pay the tax on the way out. Now, other side of that, curtains again, the Roth IRA, thank you. Okay, this is the exact opposite. The thing to remember with retirement accounts is you either pay tax on the way in or you pay tax on the way out. You don't have to do both, but you have to do one of them. So the Roth IRA, the money comes in, it's the net of your paycheck. So after taxes and everything else has been taken out. So it's after tax money, money you've already paid tax on, income tax on, that year. Limited contributions as well. This year it's $5,500, same as the IRA. However, these are designed specifically for people who will say are not in the top 10% of earners. That being said, they start to phase out around when you make $125,000, so you can still take advantage of these for quite some time. It's just contributions, the more you make, the less you can put in. It's stupid. Okay, No tax payments as it grows. It can be invested. Both of these kinds of accounts, once they're in that chassis of the IRA or the Roth IRA, they can go into mutual funds, bonds, stocks, fancy things like ETFs. There's so much. We're not getting into that though. You can also get the special one-time distributions. The great thing about Roth IRAs that I actually love is if you want to take money out, you only pay a 10% penalty before the age of 59 and a half on the growth of the money. So if you put $10,000 in, no matter what the value of the account is, you can take $10,000 out and not pay a penalty. If it grew to $15,000 and you try to take all of that out, then you have to pay the penalty on $5,000. But still more flexibility. After age 59 and a half, you take all your money and you take it without taxes, which makes it a great addition to anyone's retirement income strategy. Next slide, so important, fall away. Should I get one? Here are some things not to consider. 1, what your friend who doesn't work in finance suggested. I can't tell you how many times I'm working with clients and they come in, they go, well, my friend said that I need to blah, 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 blah. And I say, well, what does your friend do? And they go, oh, they work in marketing. I'm like, well, I don't know how to use Instagram. I don't think they know how to use that. Like, let's just agree on it. They're gonna have some information and listen, but it doesn't mean you should take action. 2, generalized advice that you hear from someone somewhere. Unless the advice is for you and specifically designed for you, then take it in as education, not an action step, which is key. 3 is Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I don't know if you guys watch it, but at one point, Kimmy gave Jacqueline some information. She was like, you should take this settlement on the divorce. Her math was correct, but money and math are not always related. So Kimmy Schmidt's a no. And then the last is financial blogs or books that don't focus on your industry, your location, and your needs. Again, great source of information. Gathering information is so key, but especially for actors, your industry requires very different planning than someone who gets a salaried job and a bonus at the end of the year. Your location, planning in New York and LA has nothing to do with planning in Ohio. It's a different world, it's a different cost of living. There are different expectations and your needs. Every one of you could have the exact same financial circumstance right now, and every one of you most likely would have a different strategy to help you achieve what you want. If your goal is to buy a house in 3 years, that's a different strategy than if you want to open a business tomorrow, or if you're going to have a baby. So many different things play into it, so you want to be really careful that the advice you get is advice specifically for you, and take everything else as education. Next one, things to consider. Let's be positive. Do you need a tax deduction? This is very closely related to what did your accountant say. Remember, IRAs are mainly about the balance between when you want to pay taxes, today or somewhere later down the road. As a financial advisor, I appreciate when I get to work in consult with an accountant to figure out the tax deductions. Sometimes people lean too much on tax deductions today, and then we get stuck with all the taxes in retirement. But you might need the tax deductions today because your income quadrupled from last year, and it's better that you keep that money. Liquidity. Liquidity is the most important thing when it comes to money. You can have all the money in the world, but if you can't touch it, what does it really do for you? We don't know what's gonna happen between now and when you turn 59 and a half. So this is only part of a plan, which I think is the theme for today. So be careful and really think about what your life looks like over the next however many years until you turn 59 and a half. Is a SEP an option? That depends on if you're incorporated. If you're not, advisors are the best ones to help you on that, specifically accountants. Are you eligible for a Roth IRA? Again, balancing tax consequences. What risks and what benefits come with each choice? Do you have enough in short-term savings? This is basically me saying liquidity again because I think it's that important. So you get it twice. And is this part of a holistic financial strategy? Most of us go through life and we make financial choices ad hoc. It's kind of like, oh, I got a car, I should get some auto insurance. Oh, now I have an apartment. Someone told me to get renter's insurance, but I really don't want to. Someone said I should start an IRA. Someone said I should invest in real estate. Unless it's all working together, it's a mess. Like I said, I was a stage manager. So in my mind, the advisor, the financial advisor, and the accountant act as your personal financial stage manager and general manager. They're gonna make this work. So, big question here. Really though, should you get one? I have no idea. That's the simple answer. But hopefully the information you get today will be a great first step in either finding a financial advisor, better understanding the financial advisor you have right now, or just being a better student of the world of finance. And I will make the offer to you guys that I make to everyone that I speak with who are in the arts. 30-minute consultation if you email me saying that you are here. Don't tell too many people, there's limited time in a day. That's all I got, thank you.
Next we have Linnell Herzer. Linnell is supervisor of the Seniors and Disabled Program at the Actors Fund. And Linnell's gonna be talking to us about Social Security and how we qualify for that.
So the biggest question in everyone's mind when they think about retirement, and most actors I know don't think about retirement. They're like, I'm not retiring, what are you talking about? But the most important thing people think about is, am I gonna have enough? And Social Security is just one of the many pieces of the puzzle, as we've seen from Arthur and Bailey. They've already covered pension and retirement and savings and investments. And so today I'm gonna focus on Social Security. I put work right after that because every 80-year-old that's an actor that comes into my office, they're planning on working. So we'll talk a little bit about how that fits into the picture as well. Let's see, I gotta put on my glasses. For 9 out of 10 Americans over 65, Social Security makes up over 50% of their retirement income. And the other part comes from the other pieces of the puzzle, and you get to decide what those pieces of the puzzles are. The people that come into our office often haven't thought about it at your age, so you have more control the younger you start in terms of what each of these pieces look like. The average benefit is $1,294. That's the average current benefit. That doesn't go very far in New York City. So it's really important to be looking at where else am I going to be getting income. So what is Social Security? Just like a pension where SAG is putting money in on your behalf based on your earnings, the government is putting money in on your behalf based on your earnings. Who's eligible? Retired wage earners 65 and older. That age is going up. So check out where you were born, and if you were born between 1943 and 1960, your full retirement age is 66. 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. What is full retirement age? You can get Social Security as early as 62, but you'll get a reduced amount. So if you wait until your full retirement age, you get the full amount. You actually get a little bit more if you delay it after your full retirement age. So how much are you gonna get? There's 3 factors that you wanna think about. How much you're gonna get is gonna be based upon your earnings record. They're gonna look at 35 years of earnings. So in the entertainment industry, you might have 1 year where you're making 6 figures, and you might have 1 year where you're making 0. They're gonna take the 35 best years. So if you've worked 35 years, you may wanna look at your Social Security record, count how many zeros there are, and say, I'm gonna work 3 more years. So they're gonna look at the best 35 years, and they're gonna take an average. And they're gonna use that average to calculate your retirement benefit at the full year, at your retirement age, the 66 or 67. So then, if you elect to retire early, your benefit is gonna be a little bit less. If you retire at 62, it can be as much as 30% less. And if you wait until you're 70, it can be as much as 35% more. But you also wanna think about what's my life expectancy? How long am I gonna use this? Because they've calculated out, pretty much where that averages out. So you wanna think about how long am I gonna depend on this? How you apply, similar to what Arthur was talking about, you can get this information online, get it early, you can find out what you can expect to get, and then once you're ready to file, you've got options. You can file online, you can file by phone, and you can file in person. I gotta check my notes here, make sure I'm giving you all the scoop. So everyone wants to know when is the best time to file. That's another personal decision. And the earliest you can file is at 61 years and 9 months. You want to file about 4 months before you want to receive your first benefit. We're not as fast, or the government's not as fast as the SAG Foundation. So you want to give it 4 months advance. We have Social Security guidance at the Actors Fund. If you're wondering about how to do it, you can come in and talk to one of our social workers and they'll walk you through it. And you'll get the benefits the month after they're due. So if you want to start getting them in December, you want to count back 4 months and from November, because you're going to get it the following month. So some of the common questions that we get is, should I take Social Security at age 62 or wait? You just want to know you're going to receive a reduced benefit, and it will be less than what you would receive if you wait. Does it pay to wait? Yes, it pays to wait, but if you need it earlier, it's important to take it out when you need it. The longer you wait, the more money that you're going to get from your Social Security benefit. There's an option called file and suspend, which means you can file and start getting it, and then you can suspend. If some of you have heard about the file and suspend, where you can file and then your spouse can collect on your benefit, that's one of the benefits that's going away. If you haven't heard about it, pretend like you didn't hear about it now, but if you have questions about that, you can talk to me afterwards, or call the Actors Fund, and we'll get you set up with a consultation. This is the biggest question that we get for actors in particular, is can I still work? Absolutely. Once you've reached your full retirement age, you can work as much as you want. You're going to collect your full benefit and whatever you earn. And taking retirement benefits early, there's a little bit of a penalty. You can earn, in 2017, in this year, you can earn up to $16,920 without any sort of a reduction in your benefit. But if you earn over that, for every $2 that you earn, your Social Security will be reduced by $1. Does that make sense? Once you get to full retirement, you get the whole thing. They've got a little trick in there about the year you get to retirement. So that year, they're going to kind of go halfway on you. And how long should I continue working before retirement? That's completely a personal decision, and it's about how much you've got in the bank and your desire to retire. Again, most of the actors I work with are like, they want to keep working. So it's a totally personal decision. If you wait, you're going to have a larger Social Security payment. You're going to have more savings. Sometimes you get the benefit of employee health care. So there's a lot of reasons to wait. And you can also work part-time if you've got the savings in place that's going to hold you. We put this in here, especially, this is kind of a New York-centric thing. Sometimes people, part of the equation in New York is the cost of living. And housing is so expensive. And when you look at the average Social Security, and if you look at the earnings fluctuations for entertainment, I don't know if we have any musicians in here, but musicians in particular, sometimes they're paid directly from the owner of a bar or a venue, and those monies aren't going through the tax system, so they don't count in your Social Security. So we have people that have outrageously successful careers in entertainment and really tiny, tiny Social Security. So just like Arthur said, go online, figure out where you're at, be strategic about it, and know that if you're not paying taxes, it's not going to be going towards your Social Security. And sometimes that's fine, but then you want to kind of pay your own little IRA. That's when you want to work with Bailey and set up your own Social Security account. So the other assets, when you look at IRAs, investments, your pension, your Social Security, in New York, your house can also be something that can bring income for you. We've got people that bought down in the village. They're 80 years old. They bought down in the village when it was cheap, and they've got an extra bedroom. So, renting out that extra bedroom can supplement your income in your retirement years too. Some people do reverse mortgages. That's one where I definitely would talk with a financial advisor before considering something like that. Home equity loans. So you want to kind of look at your whole picture and what's in your picture. Are you taxed on Social Security income? So for an individual, filing a federal tax return as an individual and your combined income is between 25 and 34, you may have to pay income tax. This is, again, where you want to work with an accountant. And more than $34,000, up to 85% of your benefits may be taxable. And there's different numbers for the joint return. Is everyone familiar with VITA? It's a volunteer income tax assistance that's available through the equity offices. They're really helpful if you've got tax questions. Social Security for married, widowed, divorced spouses, and dependent children. So for married couples, you can collect on your spouse's record, and for divorced couples, if it's over 10 years, you can collect on a divorced spouse's records. It's going to be, I believe, half of their total amount. Even if they're collecting, you can collect half of their total amount. In some partnerships, one person is working a lot and the other person is not, maybe staying at home, taking care of the kids. And so there's options there. There's options for dependent children, and there's also options when people become disabled.
It's just specifically about that divorced spouse. Maybe I can talk to you later.
Sure. Let's talk afterwards. And then I'm also going to have a sign up for anyone that wants to perhaps make an appointment with the Actors Fund for a personal consultation. In our environment, the Things are changing before our eyes, so you want to stay on top of it. In 2017, we saw that benefits increased slightly. Your Social Security benefit went up a little bit. Higher earners are paying a little bit more taxes. The retirement age inched up a little bit. You can earn more without affecting your benefits. We said goodbye to file and suspend. And there's a rise in the maximum benefit. So you want to stay on top of this. What we're presenting today, next year might be a little bit different. And thinking back to all of the different components that go into your retirement quality of life and living your very best life in your retirement years. We at the Actors Fund put together a workshop series, and we've got 8 sessions that kind of go over all the different components that go into an income and benefits that are available to you as you reach the golden years, and we call it our Living Your Best Life After 60. And we invite all of you to come to it, and it's really looking at other benefits that are available. And we've got, if you're interested, I've got a little checklist here, and there's all sorts of benefits that you've earned by paying taxes as an American citizen for all the years that you've been paying taxes. There's depending upon your income, if someone makes less than $2,194 a month, you get a little money to help with your home energy expenses. If you make less than $1,900, you get a little extra money that can buy food at the fancy food markets that we've got at the Union Square Food Market. So there's all sorts of ways to supplement your income, and we want you to know about all of them. So we have a workshop series that goes over benefits that are available to you. We've got one on affordable housing. Housing is probably the biggest nut on your whole budget. And housing in New York City is crazy expensive. There is affordable housing available. It's just the wait lists are really, really long. So the minute you turn 62 on your 62nd birthday, come in and talk to us because we want you to get on every wait list out there. When you're 72, you can't afford your apartment, you're going to be in an affordable apartment. So plan ahead and look at all of the different pieces of the puzzle. Any SAG member, SAG or AFTRA member who is interested is welcome to come to our workshop series. You can pick and choose which of the workshops are for you. And I've got a sign-up list. If you're interested in that, we'll send you emails. The next workshop that we have is our Maximizing Your Income. And that's looking at, there's certain benefits that are available to you at 62. There's certain benefits that are available to you at 65. We're going to go over all of them, and we're going to go over how you can save money on your cell phone. We're going to go over every little way that you can maximize your income and have the best quality of life possible. So mark your calendars, September 28th. They're 2:30 to 4. We call it our Third Thursday series. It's the third Thursday of every month. This month, because of one of the Jewish holidays, we're having it the fourth Thursday. But the third Thursday of almost every month, we have a Living Your Best Life workshop. I sure hope so. It's something that's been around for a long time, and these days I'm reluctant to make any predictions with what's going on in Washington, D.C. But it is one of the institutions that we've had for decades and decades in our country, and I believe it's one that our representatives are going to keep in place. And it's never meant to be your entire income in retirement. It's always been meant to supplement your income. So I believe that our country is I certainly believe our country is going to protect this one. And we also have workshops on Medicare. I believe that's also going to be safe. And we will also We promise you to keep you informed, what we know we're going to share with you. I think that's it. Where can you get more information? We say give yourself the gift of education and insight. You guys are already doing that. You're here. And if you're interested in signing up for our workshop series, even if you're not 60 yet, because this crowd looks really young, we won't card you, I promise. We'll let you in. And so come sign up. This is going to be a checklist I'll give to my activities coordinator to make sure you get information about all the great workshops we have. And I want to announce that the Actors Fund is opening a senior center for people in entertainment. We're super excited about it. We do really great activities. We have we've got a silver screenings where we get together and we look at film and TV that feature older actors and older characters, and it really brings up issues that we deal with as we age, and then we have really interesting dialogue. We have a group that gets together and they share their work as they continue to write screenplays, and they give each other really great feedback. Yesterday, we went down to the Whitney. We had a free tour of the Whitney. So we do lots of really great stuff, and if you're interested and you're 62 or older, we invite you to participate in that as well. That's going to be opening, I believe, in November. And that's me. So feel free to email me or contact the Actors Fund and ask for the Seniors and Disabled program. Thank you.
Just before I bring everybody up for questions, I just want to touch on two other components that could make up some of your retirement portfolio. One is most of us at some point in our careers are going to have money jobs, right? Just to make ends meet. You're going to work for a temp agency or some other temporary type of employment. Because of the changes in laws, a lot of these agencies that you're temping for are now required to offer 401ks to you. And in many cases, they'll automatically sign you up for the 401k unless you specifically tell them not to, all right? You want to do that if you can. You want to take advantage of that. If you're currently temping for someone or you're temping for someone for a period of time and you're not sure, ask them. Over the past couple of years, I've had several students in my workshops come up and say, you know, I noticed at some point that my paycheck looked like it went down a little bit. I didn't really pay attention. And all of a sudden, at the end of the year, I'm getting this slip that says, I have this 401k that I didn't know anything about. Because they're not working there anymore, they may not have enough in there for the company to keep monitoring their 401k. But in that case, you can roll it over into a rollover IRA, like Bailey was talking about, so you can still take control of it. So you want to be sure that you take advantage of that, because that can be another way of accumulating some money for your retirement. The other thing is, and Bailey again touched on this, are investments outside of your retirement accounts. I'm a very big proponent of people in the arts who have varying states of income at different times, having investments that throw off income which you can use for periods of time when you're not earning as much. I think those can be really helpful for you. They don't disappear when you retire. A lot of people have this idea we have to put everything into retirement and all these other things are going to go away. They become another part of what you have. So those are two other pieces. So are you did you all see sort of how these little pieces can all fit together, and now we're not feeling quite so much like we're going to live in the cardboard box, hopefully, right? Why doesn't everybody come back up, and they're going to bring some microphones around, so if you have questions for anyone in particular.
By giving somebody advice, you always take the risk of that advice doesn't work out, you're blamed for it. But it seems to me that one of the things that is being pushed from one side of the aisle is just give people the information and let them make their choices. And most people, they don't have the mind, they don't have the experience, they're not going to get the experience to make those choices. They are desperately wanting people to say, here is one clear, hard piece of advice I will give you. Not explore your options, read as much as you can, because that's not going to happen for most people. So I'd be curious to know what you think of political action is one law that should be changed. Like, I don't know if you guys know recently, but financial advisors were not required by law to act in your interests. I was like, what? And they're still not. Apparently it defeated that bill, right?
No, I
It did pass?
that.
Okay. So I just would like to know politically, and then like one hard piece of advice you would give as far as retirement saving for.
So what you were just talking about is the new Department of Labor ruling about fiduciaries. A fiduciary means that a financial advisor is required to make a recommendation that is in the client's best interest, regardless of advisor compensation. The reason that this became an issue is because of how financial instruments are actually designed. So mutual funds, if you hear about having a load, that means that it's a fee to go into it. So advisors get part of that. For a long time, that was the only way to invest. And what's happened over the past 10 years, but really the last 5, is advisory accounts have become more popular. And instead of being charged a fee to go in or out of it, the advisor receives a percentage of the total amount of money that is in that account. So it's in everyone's best interest that clients make more money, so everybody makes more money. That's a lot of the mainstay of it. I will say there is an unintended consequence in that advisory accounts have a minimum investment, and that minimum investment for most of them is about $10,000. So if someone wants to start an IRA with me and it's their first year and they can only contribute $5,500, as a fiduciary, I cannot invest their money. I can give them vague advice, but I can't actually help them. So on one hand, it's great. On the other hand, it's created some turmoil. But I will also say that most of the financial advisors I know, after 12 years in the business and my dad being in the business for 35, if you find a good human, they're gonna do what's right. And if you find a crappy human, no matter where they are, they're gonna do something crappy.
And if I could just add one little thing to that, and I completely agree, the fiduciary rule that went into effect covers retirement accounts only. It doesn't cover accounts that are outside of retirement. So one piece of advice I give people is if you have both retirement accounts and regular accounts with an advisor that you're not so sure what they're doing, and they come back and say, okay, now we're going to adhere to the fiduciary, the question is, are you doing that on both the retirement accounts I have with you and the non-retirement accounts, or is it just the retirement ones? Because the rule really only covers the advisors giving advice on retirement accounts.
So we should still be pushing for an extension of that law to cover that as well, right?
It depends. I'm going to say that 95% of the time, but there are unintended consequences of every statute that's put in place. So it depends. I think it really comes down to some people are great and some people aren't, and we can only legislate so much.
And to echo what you were saying is vote, get involved. We live in an environment that's ever changing, and it's really important that, you know who your representative is, you know who your local representative is. Sometimes we have a little bit more influence there or get a little more attention, but get involved with what's going on politically. At the Actors Fund, we've got a lot of educational workshops. Educate yourself, and at whatever level you are financially, if this is all new to you, we have workshops on cash flow, on just dealing with a budget. So these guys are really fancy with what they talk about. And we've got a financial wellness program that works you kind of through the different steps of learning about your financial picture. So get educated and get political.
Hi, I'm Jenny. So I have a question for Bailey and then one across the board. So then my question for Bailey is, you're talking about fluctuating incomes, being an actor one year I'm making this much, and one year I'm making this much. So when you do something like an IRA, like a Roth IRA, are you subject to being in trouble if you have a good year here and there? Do you have to switch it every single time you have to do something, when your income
You don't have to switch the account. You just have to switch the account you contribute to. So if you make, say, over $137,000 is, I think, the final cutoff for the Roth IRA, then you have to contribute to an IRA. You can have an IRA at the same time you have a Roth IRA. At the same time you have a regular investment account. At the same time, you have a home equity loan. So you pile all of these together and kind of build a foundation. The key when you're doing that, though, is you don't want 2 IRAs if you don't have to, because then you're paying fees on both of them, which is a lot of the reasons why people have the rollover IRA. So it's definitely something to look at. You never have to give up an account. Technically, you can roll a regular IRA into a Roth IRA. Roll just means move. I don't know why we use that. But then you have to pay taxes on it, and it's all weird stuff. I like having people have both, so it's flexible with income.
And my other question is for somebody that's kind of on the early side of things, what's your best bit of advice?
My best bit of advice is save, ideally, 20% of your income. If you did nothing, I know it sounds impossible, but I'm going to tell you factually, if from the first day you started working, you saved 20% of your gross income in a savings account, earning 1%, and you retired at retirement age, we'll call that 65, you would have enough money to retire comfortably on. Without the market, without anything else. The biggest place that you have control over your money is your cash flow. It's maybe the only place you have control over your money. So that is the first place to go for everyone across the board.
And my advice is about debt, and try to avoid credit cards. We call them the cement life raft. You know, it seems like gonna sink you fast. So get rid of your debt, build a 6-month contingency plan before you start putting money into accounts that you can't access, especially, and you know your career path better than anyone. So maybe yours is a year contingency, you know, whatever it takes for you to find that next gig. Make sure you've got the build up to that contingency and then start aggressively saving for retirement so you can, you know, have that sailboat. I want a sailboat, but, well, you know, you can have what you want in retirement. But number 1, get rid of that debt. Number 2, have a contingency. And number 3, especially when you've got those good gigs, save as much as you can when you've got the cash flow.
I just want to throw something else onto that deck because we do have a lot of young people here, which I'm betting means there are some conservatory programs, which means there's some student loans. You want to get really informed about your student loans. There's a great chance that you could be paying far less than you're paying right now if you've never addressed them. So be careful with those.
And I would say, for me, I always say the most important thing is to start to save. Make that a part of your habitual living. Pay yourself. That's really important. The other thing that I think is really important is while you're paying down debt and you're saving, don't be afraid to start investing in other types of investments like stocks and bonds. There's a lot of ways you can get into it for very little money. You benefit from the principle of compounding the earlier you get into those. So you don't want to put all of your assets into that, but you want to start getting some exposure to that because those kinds of investments work better for you over long periods of time and actually start working for you. So don't be afraid. I've talked to so many people that reach like their 60s and say, I have it all in my savings account. And they've lost all that time to earn money on these other types of investments that really work sort of superpowered for you.
I think Bailey would probably be the best to answer this, although I don't know, everybody might be able to put their 2 cents in, or maybe I should just ask my accountant. But at what point do you, and maybe this has changed in the past couple years, at what point would you encourage someone to incorporate?
Actually, I want to touch on the pension thing just for 2 seconds. If you ever looked at a pension document, it is thousands of pages. So combining 2 plans that are defined by thousands of pages is really, really, really hard, if not impossible. So asking for a timeline is like asking someone, so how long will it take you to learn how to shuffle 1,000 pages into each other perfectly? So that's why it's so hard. I've seen them, they're terrifying. For incorporating, your accountant definitely is the best person to tell you exactly when to pull the trigger. The things to consider are how much money you're getting in, how many different sources you're getting it from, and are you getting benefits from any of those places? So are you getting health benefits? Do you have access to a 401k? When is it better for you to start providing those things on your own, and it makes it cheaper in the short term and you can grow more money in the long term, as opposed to when you want to rely on another company to do it? Because incorporating is essentially saying, hey, I'm Bailey, but I'm also entertaining finance, and entertaining finance earns the money and pays Bailey. So they're two separate entities, and it's figuring out when you want to rely on you alone to provide all of that.
Cool, thank you.
This is a question for Bailey. I'm not sure, but I think you said if you have a Roth account and at age 59 and a half, you have to take all the money out.
No, you can start taking money out without penalty at 59 and a half. With a Roth, you can actually leave money in there as long as you want. You can take out whatever you want at any age over 59 and a half. It's one of the most flexible retirement vehicles that exists.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a specific question. I had worked for the United Nations 3-4 years. They pay taxes, so they wrote checks in addition to the income salary, but they never gave a Social Security tax check. So I never paid Social Security tax during. I think I went to R&G, Brennan, some tax people, and they didn't advise me properly. So even when I was not a regular staff, but on a separate contract, I still didn't pay. So a few years ago, I got a statement from the Social Security saying you don't have any income for those years. I said, this is stupid. I had more money I may ever made in my life during working for the United Nations. So they said only way is I called some companies, whatever, to change it back. Maybe I can pay the whatever taxes I need to pay. Somebody said, well, you could have done it through going to the court approval, but it's too late. No, there's nothing you can do. So my question is there something I can do at this point to change, because that's the highest income that will decide how much I'll get when I retire, and as well as security benefits.
That's really a legal question, and a tax attorney might be able to answer that, or a tax advisor. That's similar to our musicians who get paid directly from a venue, and no money is paid into Social Security, and so nothing shows up for their earnings in those years. That's where if you're earning money, if you're working outside the United States, or if you're earning money directly from someone and they're not paying taxes on your behalf, you want to set up your own retirement accounts and put that money in yourself. The money is actually coming out of, if you look at your paycheck, the Social Security is deducted, and you're paying into it. And so years that you're not paying into it, I don't know. I've never had someone say, can I pay more taxes? This might be a first. But, if you do have a circumstance where I worked overseas for a while as well, and I didn't need to pay taxes to the United States government. And looking back on that, I probably should have taken that money out myself and put it into investments. But yeah, I'm not sure if you can do it retroactively.
We have time for a few more questions. Let's, for the purposes of the next 10 minutes, focus on questions that are for everybody, more general questions.
Oh, God, I don't think mine's general, but it's short, I think. We appreciate all four of you, but this is for you, Bailey. You brought it up. You said after age 70 and a half, you must take out money before you're liable for a 50% penalty. I either didn't hear you, or how much money do you have to take out of?
It's different. It's called a required minimum distribution, and you can actually Google it, and there are a whole bunch of calculators. They'll tell you it's different based on your age and how much money is in there. They have a not so fancy algorithm, but it's very easy to find, and you just have to make sure you make that withdrawal. Honestly, sometimes we have people make the withdrawal from their IRA and put it right into a Roth IRA. So there are really creative things you can do with any of those retirement account distributions to mitigate the taxes.
If you're married and one person is older than the other, and one person reaches retirement age, like 67, and needs that Social Security income check, and the other person is though 12 years younger, would then the older person get Social Security from the younger person that is still working?
No, you're eligible to pull out early retirement at 62. So the person that reaches 62 can pull out money on their retirement, but you wouldn't be able to pull on your record for an older spouse.
Oh, no, if I'm 67,
Mm-hmm.
would I get Social Security retirement from my 12-year younger husband?
You would get it on your own record, on your own earnings
But
record.
if I don't have enough, but my husband has better income?
That's where call us and set up an appointment with one of us for, specific circumstances, and we can, if we don't have the answer, we'll help you find it.
Okay, great, thanks.
2 quick questions. Is the SEP IRA, when you're incorporated and you make contributions, I think you said it was up to $54,000, is that made by the corporation?
That's a really good question. And the answer is yes. I just had to file it. Yeah, you open a SEP and then you declare a company, you declare yourself as an employee, you have to show your documents of incorporation, and then as you file, it's that $54,000 or 25% of your income, whichever one is lower.
And then simultaneously, can you make an individual IRA contribution as well?
I believe the answer, oh, you can? I never have anyone do that because it's...
I've done that. And you don't have to I file Schedule C for any income, even though I'm not incorporated. Your Schedule C income can be used for SEP. The SEP contribution is completely separate from the traditional and the Roth. The traditional and the Roth are tied together in that you can't go over the threshold, which is, I think, $5,500 or $6,500 if you're 50 plus, because you get an extra $1,000. So you can't contribute more than that to the traditional and Roth, but the SEP is completely separate.
So theoretically, you could contribute $54,000 plus the $5,500.
Correct.
Thanks.
If you had enough income.
I'm going to say to that in 99.9% of cases, you would not want to do that. Their retirement accounts have to be used correctly. They're very dangerous when they're not.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is back to the savings account, versus going off into the stock market or whatever. If one has, in a case of everything is in one place that's liquid, and it's in say, checking, but then that money is used through a debit, a credit card, and someone could get a hold of that at some point and just wipe it out. So where would we put a little bit of that money that's liquid? I mean, in terms of not being schooled in the art of finance with stocks and so forth. Although it sounds exciting, but you don't want to play with something, like, what I'm saying? Is there a suggestion you have for that of where to start?
Diversification is always a good thing because it mitigates risk. So even if you want to keep most of your assets in cash, in very liquid, I wouldn't keep it all at one bank. I would keep some at a bank, some at a credit union. SAG has a wonderful credit union, gives better interest rates than most banks. Then you've already sort of diversified between your cash investments. If you're nervous about getting into other kinds of investments, I always say a really good one to look into are U.S. Treasury notes because they're guaranteed by the U.S. government. They don't pay as much. I know. But if the U.S. government goes down the toilet, you're $1,000 in your treasury notes are going to be the least of your worries at that moment. Trust me. Then we all start looking for cardboard boxes, right, for the street. But for treasury notes, you can get into them for as little as $100. So there's ways that you can sort of inch into them. There's Series I savings bonds, which were like the old EE bonds that Aunt Mary gave you when you graduated.
That's what I was gonna ask you about,
They're paying now like 1.25%. You can get into them for like $25. So there are ways that you can sort of help dip your toes in the water without it being too scary. And those are some good areas to start looking into if you're not quite ready to jump into some of the other kinds of investments.
And
Thank you.
I will
Just
say
wondering-
that if you haven't checked it out already, David did an awesome seminar on investing that you could find on the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's YouTube channel as well as our archives. It's very informative, and you touch base on a lot of those things you discussed.
Before I forget, I just wanted to ask you on what you had said. How does one obtain those? It's not Series EE anymore, it's something else now?
Well, they still have the Series EE. The Series I are the other kind of it, and their inflation index. If you go on to the government has a site called USTreasuryDirect.gov. I'm sorry, it's TreasuryDirect.gov, and it lists all of the different kinds of savings bonds or treasury notes that you can get. The bonds are a minimum of $25 to get into. The notes, and other kinds of sort of longer term investments are $100 minimum. But the site is very easy to use. It's treasurydirect.gov.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's an amazing suggestion for dipping your toe in the water. I would say if you're looking for something more comprehensive as a portfolio, you do want to see a financial advisor. Do not use robo-advisors that are on the internet. They ask you 5 questions and assume they know your life. I've tried them. The results are outstanding, in a bad way. But there are, actually going back to the fiduciary standard, there are risk tolerance questionnaires, there's a compliance department. When a financial advisor makes investment advice, it's based on you specifically. So I've had people who have started investing 90% in bonds and 10% in stocks because they're concerned about it. Sometimes that can backfire. Bonds have not been paying so well, the stock market has shot up. But then again, the stock market dropped by 250 points, so the people who were in bonds did great that day. There are other assets that we haven't mentioned here today in detail. Life insurance is one of them. Long-term care insurance, if you're looking towards retirement, very important. So not just looking at the fun investment side of it, but also taking a step back and have a defensive game also, because the one thing we can all be sure of is that life is not going to go exactly the way that we planned.
We have time for one more question.
Is it possible to roll a 401k into another 401k? In specifically, if you have an old day job that you had a 401k with, and a new partial day job that has a 401k that also contributes?
Yes, you can absolutely do that. Things you want to look at as you're making those choices. The investments that are available to you in the new 401k, fees that are incorporated into it, and compare them to just a rollover IRA. As you're looking at that, there's actually been a decent amount of press in the past couple of days about target date-based funds. Those are funds where you go in, you're like, I'm gonna retire in 2045, and then they put a portfolio in there for you. They're questioning the legitimacy of those and if they really work as intended. And sometimes in 401ks, as a result of those funds specifically, people can end up mismanaging their portfolio because they don't know what's in it, since that fund is always changing. So 401ks, I'm saying everything is tricky and it depends. I'm helpful. Go ahead.
And one other point to that is just make sure that the financial institutions handle the transfer for you, whether you're going 401k to 401k, 401k to IRA, because there's rules that if you actually take possession of it and hold it for a certain period of time, you're going to get a tax penalty. So you want to be sure that the institutions handle it, because now they pretty much do everything electronically. As the old days, they used to mail you a check and then you'd forget it was there and, you know, you could get a penalty. Now they pretty much do it electronically.
Yeah, the transfer forms are actually some of the simpler financial forms to fill out, shockingly.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Thank
for having
you.
us.